Going back to the top story we are tracking here on DD India News, India continues its global campaign to expose Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. For more on India's diplomatic outreach to the US in the wake of the 22nd April terror attack in India, I'm now joined by Saurabh Shukla from New York City. Saurabh, tell us more about the Indian delegation's visit to the US.
Well, Ramesh, let me say it that this delegation, which actually transited through New York, has made a big impact in telling the interlocutors here on the real story on how India, dismantled this terror infrastructure and how Pakistan-based terror groups pose a threat to not only democracies like the US, but also to economic interest. As you know, that New York is US's economic power center. So the delegation led by Shashi Tharoor and which has MPs from all the leading parties, has diplomats like Ambassador Taranjeet Sandhu, who has been India's ambassador to the US, clearly articulated to the interlocutors here, which included several business leaders, that terrorism impacts business in a big way, and it's time that the world clamps down on Pakistan-based terror groups. And the whole idea, they also visited the 9/11 memorial. The whole idea was to connect with the US interlocutors, people who matter in the US, to realize that these terror groups not only pose dangers to India, but to countries like the US as well. And it is very impactful. And I'm glad that the government chose a delegation of this wide composition, because I'm gathering from my interlocutors, because a lot of doubts were being raised by misinformation that was being spread by Pakistan. And the visit of the delegation has made sure that these doubts are not only made clear, but India's stand is firmly articulated amongst those interlocutors, especially when it comes from the US business interests. They will be visiting Washington, DC later, but the New York leg was about sending a strong message, which has gone on. Ramesh?
And talking about the US, Saurabh, do you think the US side now is more receptive to India's sentiments and concerns? Do Americans have a better understanding of the complexities of the issue at hand?
Well, absolutely, Ramesh. I've been talking to a lot of people here, whether amongst lawmakers, people from business, even think tanks. Their view is that India should continue to sustain this pressure, and also its message that it stands against terrorism of any kind. So that message has to be sustained and should resonate. I think the visit of the parliamentary delegation here is the first step. In days and months to come, I'm sure on the diplomatic front as well, we will take this fight against terrorism to its logical end. And the big message coming out is that India has been a victim. Innocent people were killed in Pahalgam, and India's response was to make sure that these terror infrastructure was dismantled, which not only posed threat to India, but to many countries like the US as well, because a lot of these terrorist groups were involved in terror attack in the US and other places as well. So that distinction was very important. And I think that distinction is coming out of India being not only promoting its strategic interest by fighting against terrorism, but also fighting it for the world. That was an important distinction, I think, which came out, Ramesh.
Indeed. I leave it there, Saurabh. Thank you. Saurabh Shukla reporting there from the US.